thing. So I want to start with a confession. So I tell you a very embarrassing confession. Up until about 3 years ago, I was one of those guys that had like three, maybe five passwords that I used for everything. And if you want to hear about how this is even worse, is some of the times that I was with using those 3 to 5 passwords, I was a network administrator. And unfortunately, a lot of my boxes had the same password that I used over and over, and sometimes went for a long time without changing them. Well, the reason that I was kind of okay with that was that because so I looked at the Hollywood perpetration of a hacker, which was they get in front of a keyboard and they try the password, it doesn't work. Try another one. Oh shoot, that still didn't work. I try one more, and then I'm in. And I'm kind of stealing a little bit, from Mike Myers' demonstration of it. Mike Myers does a CompTIA Security Plus course on Udemy, which is pretty good. And anyway, but so I'm like, okay, so that just seems so silly. So if I've got a fairly complex password, and if my password's at least 8 or 10 characters, if it's got some special symbols in it, like $ hash, exclamation point, I'm like, what are the chances, right? So what happened was when I took a course on what it kind of started with CompTIA Security Plus, and I started seeing how easy it was to obtain passwords, the light bulbs went off. Now we can go down that road if you want, and maybe we save that from a different video or a different live stream about the various techniques that they use. But like one of the most common ones is phishing. And phishing is kind of a combination of social engineering combined with man in the middle. So you get an email that asks you to take some action, and it looks fairly legit. But what you don't realize is that what you're getting ready to take action on is a fraud. It's just a mock-up of maybe your bank or some other online account, or Amazon says, hey, your last charge didn't go through. Please update your payments, whatever. I'm sure you guys have all heard that before. But my point here is that when you realize how easy it is for these guys to get a password from you, once they have that password, because so many people out there, like I was up until about 2-3 years ago, were the people that use the same passwords over and over, all they really had to do was just find out more about you. Okay, I've got Steve's password for, I don't know, let's say for Amazon. Great. Now I can buy stuff off of Amazon's account and have it shipped to me. Although Amazon's actually made it a little more tricky, and good on them for doing that. But now I'm like, well, where does Steve bank? And where does Steve work? And where does Steve keep his investments accounts? Because there's a good chance that if he used a password here that I just got for Amazon, he's probably using it here and here and here and here, right? So that's man in the middle, right? Now that's just one way. Phishing and man in the middle. Just real quick, man in the middle just basically means is what you're doing is, if this is the institution over here that you're trying to log into, say this is Amazon, and this is you over here on your computer, what they essentially do is put some kind of a mocked up website in the middle that looks like Amazon and acts as a pass-through. Or if they even want to be even lazier, what they basically do is throw up a page that looks like you're logging into Amazon. You try to use your password, it doesn't work. And so then what they do is they've got your password now, is that then they just shut off their fake website and then just let you go straight through to your real one, and then you do it again and you get in. So you think, I must have just fat fingered it or something, right? So here you are thinking, I just typed my password. You didn't realize you just got owned, and we'll talk about owned here in a minute. And so again, once they have that, and because like a lot of people, probably not only in America, but probably all over the world, because of laziness, use the same passwords over and over and over again, all they have to do is just learn more about you. Where do you bank? Where do you work? Where do you invest your money? Where do you shop? Walmart.com, Amazon.com, bnhphoto.com. And because in many of those online stores, you've stored your credit card information in that store already. So once they walk through the door, metaphorically, then now they can buy things and use your credit card that's on file and have them shipped to themselves. So All right, so that's man in the middle. Now, the other one that I learned about that kind of helped me have a come to Jesus moment was when I learned about hash stealing. So you've probably maybe heard that whenever you create an account and you put in a password, like they put in your email address. Now pick a password and you store your password. What they do is they store your password in what's called a hash. So if for instance, if my password was, God forbid, password one exclamation point, what they do is they store it. They run it through an encryptor, and you can go find these tools online. Just type in like encryption tool, and you can find it. But basically, you type a word, in plain English, and then it spits out like a whole long string of alphanumeric. Well, I think, is it all alpha? No, I think it's alphanumeric. And so you got this long thing. Well, that's your hash. Well, that's great that it's encrypted. It's maybe 256, encryption. But what these hackers do is they find a way to get into the organization. So not just your account, but they find a way to get into the organization. So let's say, for instance, this was Walmart.com, and I've created an account. I created a password. Well, now my password is stored on Walmart.com's web server somewhere in a hash file. Well, if they get lucky enough to steal that hash file, and I might be grossly oversimplifying this a little bit, but I'm going to just give you the idea. If they get lucky enough to steal that, then what they do is they have these libraries of pre-made hashes already, and they look for matches. So imagine that, the commonly used password of password 123, which is really stupid, but people do it, has a hash symbol of blah, 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 okay? All they do is they have a gigantic library of all these potential conversions of all these potential passwords that have been converted into hash. They look for a match and they say, boom, we got a match. Whose is that? Oh, that's Steve's? Okay, great. Well, now I got Steve's password. So I didn't even have to do man in the middle. I didn't have to fish his password. I just simply got it off a list by converting backwards. And that's kind of what they call brute force, I believe. And so now, again, it goes back to how much do they know about you? I mean, once they've got into Walmart.com and they've found your personal information file, they probably know what you buy. They probably know, they can probably tell if you have kids or not. They know where you live. They know your address, and they can just begin to use that information to work backwards to learn more about you, combined with other pieces of information that they can get off the dark web. So the Walmart, that's just one piece of me that they've seen. I don't know that they don't have other pieces from other websites. Even if they didn't have my password, they can have other pieces of information about me from Fidelity or from Charles Schwab or whatever, where they've learned where I keep my money. And now they can say, well, we know what his password is. Maybe we're going to get lucky and he's used that same password over here too. So that's the problem you run into with that. I just use the same, 2, 3, 4, or 5 passwords over and over. Well, so what can we do about it? Well, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. The first thing you can do is establish what's called multi-factor authentication. Now, for those of you who are real gurus out there, I can hear you already like, MFA is worthless because of this, that, and the other reason. I know the MFA's certainly got its weaknesses. I agree. Anything that I've got that's got fairly substantial potential damaging consequences, meaning financial stuff or very personal information, I decided got to have MFA. I use a variety of things. If you're not familiar with MFA, what essentially is it's usually used in combination with an app. Now you can use it with SMS, and I don't recommend that. But what I use Authy, Google, Microsoft, and I used to use Okta. I don't think I'm using Okta anymore. But what they are is they're apps. And if you go to set up MFA, what'll happen is it'll say use your Auth app to take a picture of the QR code or type in this code. And then what you're doing is you're creating a relationship between this Auth app on your smart device and your login. So what happens is you go to log in, you put in who you are, you put in your password, and then it says, okay, now we want the code from your app. And so because you've bonded those two through that process, I said earlier, you have to go open your app and you can get the code out of there and put it in. So basically what it means is that no one can log into your account unless they have your smart device with that app on it. Now, I know it's not bulletproof. It's not bulletproof because anybody who's been paying attention lately knows that you can do this thing where it's it's basically cookie stealing. It's another man in the middle thing. Where essentially what happens is once you've authenticated with the MFA, then now that information is stored in the cookie, or the cookie has the information that is needed. Well, what they do is they get in the middle and steal the cookie, and then they can use that session. But it's still better than nothing. All right, it's still better than just the plain old. I mean, the worst possible scenario you can have is to be the person who's just oh yeah, I have my email address and my password. I use the same password for mostly everything. I know people try to be clever. Oh no, I've got 4 or 5 different passwords. Ooh, wow, sophisticated. The only problem I've had with this whole having to keep track of the passwords is, I thought, oh, I'm going to be smart. I'm going to use one of these services like LastPass. So I entrusted my life to LastPass, and I got all set up with LastPass. And I probably had, I don't know, over the course of a year, I probably had maybe 100 or so passwords stored with LastPass. Well, LastPass got hacked. Great. Okay. I don't know if they got my master. So, because what happens is when you set up one of these password accounts, like Password One, or what is it? 1Password or LastPass, there's a couple others, is you have to create what's called a master password, which is like a master key for the whole thing. And, LastPass claims that those didn't get violated, although I'm not so sure. But anyway, once that happened, I started getting a few funky little emails making me think I was being owned. And so I was like, yeah, shame on me. So I had to unwind myself from LastPass, which took a while. I mean, basically I had to export everything and then kind of what I do now, and you can laugh if you want, and I know some people say you shouldn't do this, is I use a secure web spreadsheet. I keep all my stuff on a spreadsheet. One of the reasons I like the spreadsheet is it can be printed out. Do you guys ever think about how much stuff you store online and you don't have like a local backup copy of? For instance, what would you do if you got up tomorrow morning and your Google account had locked you out? Not that because you forgot your password, but because Google just simply decided that you'd done something that they didn't like, and so now you were no longer allowed to access your Google account. How many things would you not have access to? Or even if it was your Apple account. I mean, I know for me, I entrust so much into my Google account where so many things are tied to it that I have to actively stop and think, do I have another repository of this information? So like with my spreadsheet, I can save it locally. I can export it to a CSV. I can even print it out on paper if we have the zombie apocalypse and we lose electricity. Of course, I guess I wouldn't be logging into anything if that happened. Anyway, but at least I'd have a local copy. So it just, we don't think about these things. I think it's a little bit of a hypnosis that happens over time. We get lulled into this sense of just comfortableness that we just say, my Google account will always be there. I don't really have to worry about it, right? Well, anyway, the other thing you can do too, besides the MFA, is you should increase the complexity of your passwords. So if we were on the elevator and I was going to give you 3 recommendations, it would be this. Create complex passwords that are lengthy. Use some kind of MFA type of system, whether it be an app on a smartphone or some other MFA method for all your important logins. And shoot, I lost my train of thought. There was a third one. I want to show you. Use something like a password generator. So when we try to make up our own passwords, we do things like, let's see, I don't know. Let's see, what kind of truck do I have? A Ford F-150. Okay, Ford F-150. When I graduated from high school in 1985. Okay, 1980. Ford F-150, 1985. Oh, and I guess I should put some special characters. So what do we always use? Exclamation point. I swear, it's the most overused extra character in password land. Now, there's another technique out there you can use that some people have been doing, which is the act of using sentences. So for instance, you could say, all dogs like green meat. Okay. So now notice I didn't say all dogs like meat because that's kind of like maybe a little too makes sense. But you stick some other random word in there that's kind of easy to remember, like all dogs like green meat. And then maybe add a special character and maybe make the A capital or something like that. It's very easy to remember. You don't have to like look at it and type it character by character. You can just, it's in your head. Because when you count up all the letters, all dogs like green meat. I don't know. There's probably maybe 16, 18 characters in there. So the longer you make your passwords, it really adds up. In fact, I did a video on that channel I was just showing you, the cyber defense channel, about something called how secure is your password. It's like a little tester, and you could type it in, and it'll show you, like, you start with like maybe a 4-letter word, like, I don't know, cats, and it's like super simple, can be cracked in like microseconds, and then you make it longer and longer, and then the amount of time it takes to crack it, it's longer and longer and longer. It's pretty cool to play with. Well, I think it's called Password Monster. Yeah, you can Google it. Password Monster. Password Monster is what it's called, and it has a thing where you can test passwords in there. So, but I also want to talk about non-technical security. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean things that don't have to necessarily do with computers. Now, if you guys are familiar with a guy named, I hope I say his name right, Stephen Mitnick. He died recently. He died like within the last year or two. He was one of the very early hackers that relied mostly on what's known as social engineering, meaning he used psychological tricks to gain access to things. Apparently, at one time, he even managed to like walk right into like a bank vault or something, like got like way back into a bank or something. And I think he also did something where he actually got into a bank and it was able to do like a massive wire transfer or something to himself. So anyway, but what's Steven's deal is that he just basically used psychological maneuvers to get people to give him what he wanted to, so he could get access to systems. Now, so think about your daily life. I'll give you a quick example. This was pointed out to me one time by somebody that kind of freaked me out. When you go to get your automobile serviced and you're dropping it off and you're with the service writer and he writes down, oil change, rotate tires, whatever. And then at some point, there's a part where you hand over your keys. Well, when you hand over your keys, what are you handing over with it? Is your house key on that ring? Are there other keys on that ring? Like keys to, first of all, there's the key to your automobile, although automobiles have gotten much more sophisticated, so just copying a key isn't enough. But a lot of house keys, they're just pieces of metal. There's no special thing on it. There's pieces of metal. And you're leaving that car key, those set of car keys with that place for all day, overnight, plenty of time to get that key copied. Now, I am not pointing fingers at the people who work on your cars. I'm just pointing out that when that set of keys, which might have your house, that set of keys, which might have your house key on it, is now in the possession of this other place, you don't know who has access to that. You don't know who has access to copy that key. Now, while we're on that topic of automobiles, think about your garage door opener, a little push button thing that you use to open your garage door. Okay. I don't know how much the technology has changed now, but it used to be fairly easy to copy those, to clone those, because what you could do is you could push it in and you could point it at something else and you could train this something else to be on the same level of access as the garage door opener. Because I know, like when you used to program like the little buttons that came built into your car, that's how you did it. You would hold the button in, then you would push the garage door opener, and then it would train the button in your car. Well, so this garage door opener, which is probably still sitting in your car when you're having your oil changed, is now in the not possession of, but is in a place where it's accessible to people that you have no idea. You have no idea. Okay. So think about little things like that. Think about, for instance, when you hand off your credit card in a restaurant, the server takes your credit card and runs off to go get it swiped and then comes back however many minutes later. You don't know where that credit card's been. Now, I'm not saying that your restaurant server is out to get you. I'm just pointing out that we do things all the time without thinking about how we're relinquishing these keys that have very large potential to do damage. Keys meaning like keys to your car, garage door opener, credit card. There's probably some other things that I haven't even thought of. Those are just a few, but we probably do this every day. Another example is like, for instance, think about all the mail that you get, things like statements, bank statements, medical stuff. Do you shred that? Do you shred those documents or otherwise somehow destroy them before you before you throw them away. Because once you put them in that trash bag and they go in a trash can, you don't know what happens after that. Yeah, sure, the truck comes by, a little machine reaches out, grabs the can, and dumps the trash into the truck. I mean, I'd like to hope that's pretty much the end of it at that point, that is never seen again, but you don't know. You don't know for sure. All right. So, I personally, what I do is I have a pile in my office. It's actually back here behind me, where if I have important, hard copy type documents that have got personal information on it, I put in that pile. And my son loves to shred paper. So about once a month, we'll take the pile out, we'll go out in the garage and we'll crank up the shredder. And he loves to feed him in there and watch the thing go. He has a great time watching that. So anyway, that's another example. So all I'm asking you to do is think about times in your day, in your daily life, in your routine, where you're unknowingly exposing potential vulnerabilities about yourself, whether it be credit cards, car keys, garage door openers, papers that you shred or don't shred. There's probably like a lot of others I haven't even think. I'm just kind of reading off bullet points here because I didn't do a comprehensive. Here's another really good one, and this one I really hate. You get these companies, and medical places are the worst about this. Is they call you up and they say, hi, have I reached Steve O'Neill? Yeah, this is Steve O'Neill. Now, Steve O'Neill, can you? This is so and so with Advent Medical. Can you please verify your date of birth? I'm like, well, hold on. I mean, just because you called me on the phone and maybe your caller ID says Advent Medical and you say you're with Advent Medical, what do I know? How do I know who you really are? And now you're asking me for date of birth, last four of my social security number. Maybe you're asking me for some other pertinent information just so that they can verify that they've reached who they wanted to reach. Now, this may be completely legit, but do you realize the absurdity of this, of how easy it would be for anybody to fake a caller ID, get a few pieces of information about somebody, and then call them up and pretend to be some organization who needs to verify their information before they can talk to you? It's just silly. It's so backwards. And I unfortunately, I've gotten kind of rude with these people. I said, look, I'm sorry. It's not personal. I don't mean to be rude, but the reality is I don't know you from Adam. If there's some matter I need to clear up, if you could give me a phone number to the contact center, I will call you back. Or if you can give me some more pieces of information so I know for sure that I'm really dealing with who I think I am. For instance, maybe I say, well, what's this about? And maybe they could give me some very specific information that would clearly indicate that, like, okay, I'm dealing with a legit organization that they say they are, before I start doing things like giving out birthdays and last four social security numbers and home addresses and God knows what else they're asking for. I mean, a lot of industries play fast and loose with your information. Yes, there are things in place like, the PCI legislation and, the HIPAA laws and over in Europe, they have, what is it called? GDPR. But, people are just people, and people take shortcuts, and people do all kinds of things to, make their day go faster. I mean, as humans, it was evolutionarily necessary for us to develop shortcuts. And so we still use them today. And because we do, it causes us to sometimes get lazy when we're managing aspects of our job that could potentially be damaging to the people's information that we're handling. So they don't mean any malintent, but I like to stop them in their tracks and like, hold on, Mrs. So-and-so from Advent Health. I need to know for sure you are really who you say you are, or give me a number to call back and what you want me to what it is you're calling for, and then I'll do it that way. So anyway, I think I kind of rambled. This was just a scratch of the surface on security, and I am certainly no security expert. I just hope that in this time we've spent together that I've woken you up a little bit to some ideas about these vulnerabilities that you may not even be aware of. So if you're that person out there who's using the same 5 passwords, for everything, I'm not here to shame you, because I was that person up until a few years ago before too. I'm just asking you to think about that and maybe make some changes. And if you don't use multi-factor authentication, meaning like a separate application to authenticate your logins, You might want to consider that for your especially important, meaningful web portal logins, like financial institutions or medical institutions. All right, bye everyone.